In this episode, we take a look at the career of the Galveston Giant, Jack Johnson, to try and determine just how good the enigmatic champion was. Jack Johnson was born on March 31, 1878, in Galveston, Texas, to parents Henry and Tina Johnson. The third of 9 children, Johnson would go on to become, arguably, the greatest heavyweight champion the world has seen. Johnson had 76 official bouts along with a number of exhibitions. Johnson had 54 wins, 34 by knockout, with a knockout ratio of 63%. He suffered 11 defeats, he had 8 draws. He also had 1 no contest and 18 no decision bouts. He stood 6 feet and a half inches, with an aggregate weight of 203 pounds over his career. Johnson also had a 74-inch reach. Circa 1894, Johnson, like many for the time, started out his career as an offense-first fighter. This was likely in part to his size and knowledge of the sport at the time. Johnson was inexperienced and learned on the job early in his career, especially defensively, and suffered some knockout losses. He had a few battles with Klondike John Haynes through 1900, which really pushed Johnson as Haynes was able to match his physical strength. What is regarded as the turning point for Johnson was his February 25, 1901, fight in Galveston, Texas, with Hall of Famer Joe Koinski. Koinski, one of the most formidable boxer-punchers in the history of the sport, was routinely outweighed and packed enough punch and a clever enough skill set to frustrate many of the greats during his time. At this point, Koinski had already been in the ring with the likes of Tom Sharkey, Barbados Joe Walcott, Peter Marr, Charles Kid McCoy, George Godfrey, Gentleman Jim Corbett, Bob Armstrong, Jim Jeffries, and Bob Fitzsimmons. Between those opponents, there wasn't a style Koinski had not seen in the ring, and his resume was littered with future world champions. Koinski knocked out Johnson in the 3rd round of their contest with a hard right hand after feinting with his left. Prizefight knockouts were outlawed in Texas and both fighters were jailed. During lockup, Johnson was to learn some of the craftiness and defensive measures associated with the sweet science. The two sparred often during their month-long stint in jail, and Koinski was quoted as stating, "A man who can move like you should never have to take a punch." This was in reference to Johnson's overall skill set and athleticism. We have a decent amount of footage that shows Jack Johnson in action, and it aligns with the notion that he became a more patient, defensive fighter through the remainder of his career, part for his effort against Jess Willard. Johnson was very much a larger-than-life figure. Whether it was simply a training session or a night out, Johnson attracted the masses. Johnson's most definitive showing was his complete domination of then world heavyweight champion, Tommy Burns, on December 26, 1908. Johnson used his pure strength and skill to dominate Burns in a nearly effortless manner. This fight displayed the very nature of Johnson's style as he routinely thwarted any offensive assault Burns mustered. This included tying up Burns on the inside and rendering him ineffective. Burns came into the fight on a 13-fight winning streak, excluding a draw with Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, which was avenged in their next fight. Anytime Burns charged forward offensively, Johnson would land the right uppercut before tying up Burns. When clinched, Johnson landed a multitude of rights while nullifying everything from Burns. More compelling was the nature in which Johnson handled Burns, who had defended his World Heavyweight Championship multiple times prior. Johnson showed no respect for Burns' ability, oftentimes smiling and jeering with the crowd. Johnson at times would even hold up Burns to prevent him from hitting the canvas. His performance was best summed up by Jack London in the front page of the Australian Star newspaper. The fight. The word is a misnomer. There was no fight. No Armenian massacre would compare with the hopeless slaughter which took place in the stadium. It was not a case of too much Johnson, but of all Johnson. A golden smile tells the story, and the golden smile was Johnson's. The fight had all the seeming of a playful Ethiopian at loggerheads with a small and feudal white man, of a grown man cuffing a naughty child. Johnson's most famous fight was dubbed the fight of the century when he defended his world heavyweight title against James J. Jeffries in Reno, Nevada, on July 4, 1910. Jeffries was the former world heavyweight champion before retiring while champion and still in the prime of his career. Much like when Johnson captured the title, he dominated from the opening bell, dragging Jeffries into deep waters, utilizing the same strategy of nullifying Jeffries' offense while getting off numerous shots on the inside. Given that Jeffries was coming off of a nearly 6-year layoff, he hardly stood a chance against a prime Johnson, though many of his fellow white counterparts at the time heavily favored him in the fight. This was almost entirely due to race, and Johnson held nothing back as he systematically broke down Jeffries and took every bit of fight out of him before his corner stepped in to save further embarrassment. Jeffries never fought again. Over the course of his career, Johnson fought some of the best boxers the world has seen, building an impeccable resume. One criticism of Johnson looking back on his title reign is the fact that while he was champion, he too denied a number of deserving black contenders the opportunity to fight for the title. His overall resume includes fights with the likes of Joe Koinski, Barbados Joe Walcott, Sam McVie, Joe Jeanette, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, Denver Ed Martin, Marvin Hart, Jess Willard, Sam Langford, Tommy Burns, James Jeffries, Hank Griffin, Bob Fitzsimmons, Fireman Jim Flynn, Stanley Ketchel, and many more formidable foes. In total, Johnson faced 9 International Boxing Hall of Famers over the course of his career, to include fighting some of them multiple times. Taking all things into account, Johnson ultimately proved to be one of the greatest boxers to ever lace up a pair of gloves. His ability to change his style and mindset in the earlier part of his career proved to be a means for cementing his place in boxing history. He was so good that there was essentially a call for a great white hope to dethrone him once he gained championship fame. Johnson not only backed it up in the ring, but he also lived according to his own rules outside of it. How he was able to become so accomplished in a time of racial tension is a testament to his mental fortitude, as he was able to apply his trade in hostile environments. It's always hard being the first to do something, and in Johnson's case, he took his opportunity to the utmost heights one could imagine.